What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again, once again. So, I've been going back and forth on making a video about the reboot of Destiny 2's development back in early 2016. Primarily because, well, I've already made that video. So, way back in the infancy of this channel, I made a video called Destiny 2. Why Destiny 2 will ship unfinished like Destiny 1 did. Link in the description below. And I wasn't sure I had much to add to the topic because, well, I'd already done a 16-minute post-mortem on the development of Destiny 2 that garnered me a lot of hate at the time. But, like with all things, give it enough time and Joker is always right. That said, it was the most voted on topic on a Twitter poll I did, beating out both Monster Hunter and Anthem. So, before I get a deluge of comments saying, "But Joker, just play something else," as if Destiny is the only thing I play, or play Warframe, as if I don't, remember, this video was voted on by you, the Darkside Royalty community over on Twitter, where, for the time being, I'll be making polls and taking suggestions on what content you want to see in the foreseeable future. You know, try something different. Blatantly obvious Twitter plug aside, stop me if you've heard this before. The lore of Destiny 1 doesn't matter because Destiny 2 is a reboot. I'm sure a handful of you just had a eureka moment, like a light bulb just went off in a few of your brains and the synapses started to fire, and links were drawn between hearing that Destiny 2's story was being rebooted, and that the new news of suddenly, magically out of nowhere, that Destiny 2 had a mid-development reboot. Welcome to the dissemination of information on the internet. It's like a game of telephone in real time. I think most people knew that a reboot happened in regards to Destiny 2, so the sudden explosion of people emailing me and tweeting me and messaging me a video from Young Yi where he talks about the sudden reboot of Destiny 2's development is odd, but it's understandable. Condescending dickishness with a smug helping of "I fucking told you so" aside, what actually are the facts? Well, like I said back in July of 2017, at that time we'd known for a year and a half that the development of Destiny 2 had gone through some sort of catastrophic issue because you don't reboot a game otherwise. Destiny 2 was pushed out of fall 2016 and into fall 2017, and in its stead, we got Rise of Iron. In an article by Jason Schreier called The Great Destiny Malaise of 2016, Jason writes, "Bungie hasn't offered players any sort of roadmap for what's coming next. During Destiny's first year, Bungie made their plans clear, detailing a strict DLC plan that laid out what they would deliver and when they'd deliver it. This time around, players don't know what the future looks like. It may help clear things up for players to know this. One of the reasons Bungie has no roadmap is that they may not know exactly what's coming down the road. Plans for Destiny's future are constantly in flux. As an example, just last week, higher-ups at Bungie delayed Destiny 2 out of this September, according to people familiar with the goings-on at the studio. Although Bungie has not yet announced Destiny 2, which could be called something else to avoid confusion, it was essentially public information that they'd planned to release a new iteration of the game this fall, thanks to a contract leak in 2012 that revealed the scope of their 10-year plan for Destiny. For a long time, Bungie had a schedule of annualized releases that would swap between full games, Destiny Game 1, Destiny Game 2, and hefty expansions, Comet 1, Comet 2. As of last week, that appears to have changed. Bungie has declined to comment. Even within the studio, people may not be aware of every decision the leadership makes. From what I hear, as of yesterday, not everybody at Bungie even knew about Destiny 2's delay. And then, on May 20th, 2016, Jason wrote another article. Leaked posters reveal Destiny's next expansion, Rise of Iron. At the end of the article, Jason writes, "In January, as we reported earlier this year, Bungie moved its initial target for Destiny 2 from 2016 to 2017. Replacing D2 in this fall slot will be Rise of Iron, although it's not clear what else Bungie will release between then and fall of next year. From what we hear, Destiny 2 was recently rebooted, with Taken King director Luke Smith taking the reins on the project in the wake of Bungie staff reorganization. So the timeline of events as of now seems to be Destiny 2 Year 1 2014, Taken King 2015, then Destiny 2 was supposed to release fall 2016. But at the end of 2015 or beginning of 2016, however, something happened and Luke Smith took over as the lead on Destiny 2. Destiny 2 was pushed back into 2017 and we got Rise of Iron instead. For those of you keeping track, if I had to place my bets, this is likely why nothing from Rise of Iron is mentioned outside of one or two lines. If you want to know where my frustration for Destiny and Bungie begins, categorically it's at this moment. I mean, think about it. Destiny 2 has, at this point, what? 3 years of development under its belt? Story, worlds, assets, enemies, abilities, exotics, all created, likely with whatever version of Destiny, probably Taken King at the time, in mind as the backbone for all the various systems. Many of Destiny 2's PvP maps, strikes, and raid mechanics were likely built with the Taken King sandbox as its foundation, and everything was on course to ship fall 2016. And then, something happened. In an interview with IGN, Luke Smith tells us about the choice he had to make when taking over as lead of Destiny 2.
We had sort of two pretty clear paths. Path A was a path where we keep doing Taken King style expansions going forward. Path B was ultimately the path that we chose, which was whenever a game comes out with a number on it, is an opportunity to bring people into the universe, to bring more players into the world.
He chose poorly.
But it appears that wasn't quite the only factor when it came to making choices for Destiny 2.
And then after Taken King, what they did was, and I reported this on Kotaku, what Bungie decided was, we can't do this anymore. This is just too much. This is too hard for us to do. The tools that we work with are really hard to deal with. It's hard for us to make this much content. It's just hard making content in general. And they said, we are going to do a drip feed of smaller stuff, and we're going to put up the Eververse, sell microtransactions, and make money that way. And Activision said, okay. It was part of their renegotiated deal.
And now, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, allow me to indulge in a bit of likely speculation. At the release of Taken King, Destiny 2 should have been in development for around 2 years. In fact, we know this to be true, because in early August 2016, concept art depicting the new subclasses and the beginning of Destiny 2 started making the rounds on the internet. Since this looks an awful lot like storyboarding for a teaser trailer, I think it's safe to assume that this was part of some advertising, which makes sense given that if a huge AAA title like Destiny 2 is going to be released fall 2016, all of the marketing would have been well in pre-production already, and was likely shelved due to the reboot. At this point, we have reason to believe that the story by and large was exactly the same as it is now, or at least the beginning was. The Cabal invade, the city falls, we lose the light, and we need to seek out a new source of power. It's also likely that the very end of the story is the same as well. The Traveler wakes up, boom, light spreads across the universe, and interacts with these pyramid ships. On a side note, remember when there was supposed to be a Cabal raid on Mars on a pyramid-like ship called the Pyramidion? Anyways, clearly, if Destiny 2 started development as an addition to the base Destiny game, then any content that took place on Old Russia, the Moon, Venus, Mars, the Dreadnought, the Black Garden, or the Reef would have had to have been gutted or repurposed. A reorganization of the story would explain some of the more bizarre plot holes. For example, the entire Titan Io Warmind subplot. We go to Titan to regroup with the Vanguard, but the Hive have taken it over. But, conveniently, one of the rigs just so happens to have a MacGuffin within its depths that will allow us to decrypt a Cabal transmission. The only Cabal transmission within the history of Destiny that our ghosts can't figure out. Old Golden Age tech with a couple hundred years of entropy working against you? Not a problem. Literal reality warping magic or an archive of over 1 billion years of hive knowledge? No issue. Multi-dimensional Vex confluxes that branch into the past, present, and future? Child's play. This one Cabal transmission? No luck. See, if we had access to Destiny 1, in the event that my ghost couldn't bullshit scan his way into something while I defended against 3 waves of enemies, my first inclination would be go ask Rasputin in Old Russia. Which is kinda hard to do when you don't have Old Russia. And seemingly, as if cognizant of this problem, we're sent to a convenient Warmind bunker on Io, with no link to Rasputin until it did, or something.
Never ask for anything, never for anything, and especially from those who are stronger than you. They'll make the offer themselves and give everything themselves. I don't understand. Something's happening. Hey, sorry, I spaced out for a second.
Io, probably one of the worst destinations Bungie has ever created, with nothing of interest except for how very hard it's trying not to be Venus, while at the same time being a much, much less interesting Venus. No, really, seriously, I cannot be the only one who thinks Io looks like it was put together over a weekend, and then stuffed with plot-convenient items that we might need because, well, we can't go back to the Black Garden or Venus or Old Russia. Even Asher Mir's origin story seems like a blatant ripoff of Kabar the Legionless's origin story, but changed ever so slightly so it doesn't look like they copied each other's homework. And if I might indulge a little bit further, what the actual fuck is going on with some of the stories introduced with the Grimoire during Age of Triumph? Like, what the fuck is going on with the Fallen and the Awoken of the Reef? See, at the end of Rise of Iron during Age of Triumph, there was a huge Grimoire update. One of the cards was Ghost Fragment Reef 4. This card tells us the story of how Prince Aldrin, the Queen's brother, for those of you who are new to Destiny, they're essentially Destiny's discount Lannister twins. The story in Reef 4 picks up after the Taken King, when the Queen is believed to be dead and her brother is somehow on Mars. Prince Aldrin, after his magic sublight journey from Saturn to Mars in an afternoon, goes on a hunt for allies. Why? Well, we don't know why. But after some time, he is captured and brought before the Kell of House Kings. And then he beats the Kell of House Kings in trial by combat, and then takes over as the Kell of House Kings. And we have no idea why. What we do know is what the card states. Now it was time to stop searching and start building. He would need soldiers who answered to him and no one else. Bodies to shape with will and magic and tech to his needs. These would serve. And in D2, all of the fallen houses have been unified, and with no mention as to why they've been unified or who leads them. We assume it's Prince Aldrin because the Grimoire, but how much of that is still even relevant? I bring all of this up because when you get down to the brass tacks of it and look at the main story being told in Destiny 2, outside of some pretty cinematics that have nothing to do with what we're doing 99.999% of the time, Destiny 2's story is just as pieced together and disjointed as Destiny 1's is. Only Destiny 2 has a dose of pretty CGI to fool people into thinking there's more going on than what there really is. Part of this is probably just bad writing, but I suspect a large part is due to Old Russia, Venus, Mars, the Moon, the Dreadnought, the Black Garden, and the Reef no longer being a part of the game after the reboot. And once these areas got cut, so too did their plot lines. The reason I brought up Prince Aldrin and the reason I brought up Rasputin is because both of those plot lines would have taken us to Old Russia. It's kind of hard to go to Old Russia when there's no Old Russia in the game anymore. I mean, this is really the only thing that makes sense, because otherwise, what the actual fuck were they doing for 4 years? Destiny 2, like Destiny 1, only makes sense when you realize that large portions of the content for the game is likely sitting on some cutting room floor. And then after butchering the original version of Destiny 2, which had been in development for 3 years at this point, they spend the next 16 months leading up to Destiny 2's release justifying the 2 on the box. So many of the assets in Destiny 2 are pulled right from Destiny 1. Everything is dumbed down and seems like it was less for balance and more because it was easier to test and ship. Destiny 2 is missing systems and features that we had in Taken King or in Rise of Iron, like custom games or something as stupid simple as the ability to do sparrow tricks. Where did those 4 years go? I mean, realistically, that's pretty much the same dev time Destiny 1 had. And we know what was created during Destiny 1's dev time. All the assets for Destiny 1, all the assets for The Dark Below, all the assets for House of Wolves, and many of the assets for Taken King, like the Dreadnought, along with a last-minute reboot. And yet, we have Bungie devs saying things like,
we can't do this anymore. This is just too much. This is too hard for us to do. The tools that we work with are really hard to deal with. It's hard for us to make this much content. It's just hard making content in general.
Well, perhaps it wouldn't be so hard to make content if, I don't know, you didn't, spend 3 years with your thumb up your ass making a game and then decide, you know what, for the hell of it, for the lulz, we're going to go ahead and reboot in the 11th hour and, well, you know what? It's hard to make content. It's so hard to make content. Yeah, I guess it is hard to make content when you're being mismanaged and then somebody else comes along and goes, hey, you know all that stuff you were doing for 3 years, all that Destiny 2 content you made? Yeah, you know what? We're taking the company in a different direction, so it'd be nice if you could, I don't know, reorganize all of that into a new game. Just maybe, kinda, sorta, please. Fucking A. It's no wonder as to why the original Destiny 2 director is...
He's not at Bungie anywhere, and then Luke Smith took over.
I would have told him to shove it up their ass too. So, knowing all of this, my conclusion is during the first 3 years of Destiny 2's development, it was attached to Destiny 1, like a very large Taken King style expansion. Luke Smith then came in and made the call to reboot the development of Destiny 2. Why? We don't know. But I think the safe money is they wanted to justify the 2 on the box and streamline the content of Destiny 2 in order to appeal to a wider audience, and made changes in the systems and the endgame progression to revolve around microtransactions. As Jason said,
it's hard for us to make this much content. It's just hard making content in general.
And in the 16-month reboot period, everything that was part of Destiny 2's story that used Destiny 1 was gutted, and the overall story was streamlined, and this is why there seems to be plot holes abound. Likely because that story did once exist in a version of the game, but was ripped out. Features and systems were further dumbed down to appeal to a mass market, and things like the 2 primary weapon system was born in this era as well. Again, it's easier to balance a game when there's not much to balance. You don't have to worry about snipers in PvP when nobody's using them. And paradoxically, instead of using this time to also develop the DLCs with another team from their near 900 employees, some of which have to be developers, they decided that they would wait until after Destiny 2 was almost complete and released to start work on the Curse of Osiris. It is becoming more and more apparent that Destiny 2 is the product of somebody coming into a development team in the midnight hour and then changing the entire scope of the project. Then, realizing halfway to dawn that they don't have enough time to properly implement a full game with what they have, so they start cutting corners. So the game looks to be more finished than what it actually is at first glance. Meanwhile, they're shoehorning in an entire endgame built around microtransactions. Why? Because, as we all know,
It's hard for us to make this much content. It's just hard making content in general.
don't get me wrong, a lot of this is entirely speculative, but it's not outside the realm of believability or what we've seen happen at Bungie before with things like Halo 2 and Destiny 1. And the speculation fits not only the timeline of events, but in a lot of ways, it's the only thing that makes sense given what we know. Sure, I've likely got some of the details wrong, but again, not outside the realm of believability. If even a fraction of this is true, as I suspect it is, then the management staff is grossly incompetent. I mean, how do you have 2 mid-game development reboots on the main installments of your franchise in the midnight hour, and then ship 2 lackluster products, and not instantly clear house? At any management job I have ever worked, if somebody fucked up not even remotely this bad, they would have been out on their ass. So, even the management of the management doesn't seem to be holding the management accountable. But I guess none of them care just as long as it continues to print money. But here's the issue, Bungie. You got me, and you got a lot of other people locked into Destiny 2 until DLC 2. Fool me once, fool me twice. With the dissatisfaction of Destiny 2, with the controversy after controversy after controversy that Destiny 2 has had, how many people do you think will show up for Taken King 2? If it's not free, or Destiny 3? Sure, you know what? Destiny 2 sales might look good. Perhaps so do the microtransaction sales for Season 1. But how's that bottom line gonna look long term with the player population and the trust in the company falling off a cliff? Well, I guess only time will tell. But like always, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. And like always, stay frosty.